A very good afternoon and welcome to all. My name is Kelly Easton and I'm the Program Director for DMG Events. We are delighted to have you join Transport Evolution for a coffee with the CEO of Transnamib, Mr. Johny Smith. I'm also so pleased to introduce you to our moderator, Professor Andrea Jurichin. Before we begin, I would like to let you know that today's session is recorded and Mr. Smith's presentation will be made available in the coming week. Should you have any questions for Mr. Smith or Professor Andrea, please post them in the Q&A box and they will tackle as many questions as time allows. Thank you so much, Professor. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Johny. It's a pleasure to have you here for this discussion. We met last year in Durban. This year we have a little bit far away, but I'm sure that it will be the same interesting of last year. So we are here for a coffee with the CEO. We have here Johny Smith, the CEO of Transnamib, and we will discuss a little bit about the company Transnamib, and then we will also discuss a little bit about the future of rail freight, and I will give some elements more about how the sector is evolutioning. So Johny, the floor is yours, and thank you very much to be here.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you for having me, and welcome to the session where you will have some coffee with me and some more. Okay, so I have a presentation that I will go through. Andrea, I can proceed?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So just to give a perspective on Transnamib and what are we doing after COVID-19, it's really, I think this pandemic has really caught a lot of us off guard, but it's not about that. It's about what are we doing to find the best way forward. It can be this pandemic, it can also be other issues. So as Transnamib, I always use this picture in terms of where we are, and we are basically focused on two things, which is a goal in terms of our business plan, which I will cover a little bit later, and then the perspective that there's been hope. The last 2 years that I've been at Transnamib, we've worked on a lot of opportunities to see how we can transform the company going forward. Now, as a state-owned entity, we are of course 100% owned by government, and we do fulfill two core services, which is rail operations, and then we have also a large portfolio for property within the country. We do have three PPPs in terms of the form of subsidiaries in place, which is the Swakopmund Hotel, where we have a 50% partnership with Stocks and Stocks. And then we have a sleeper factory in the northern part of Namibia that's basically providing sleepers to the whole Namibian railway network. And there we have a 50% shareholding, while we have two other partners, a technical partner and a BEE partner. The third subsidiary that we do have is called NAMRail, where Transnamib has 51% and our other partner has got 49%, where the focus is railway construction and rehabilitation. Now, in terms of our setup in Namibia, the rail infrastructure is owned by it's owned by the government, and I need some more coffee. And Transnamib is the sole rail operator. Now, as a company, we have about 1,400 employees. Our locomotives, they run about 2.4 million kilometers on an annual basis. Last year, we've moved about 1.6 million tons. and our annual turnover is just over $500 million rand, and our asset value is more than 3 billion rand. Of course, in terms of our assets, there's a lot of maintenance that hasn't been done over the past few years. So we need to invest a lot in terms of maintenance. And of course, the real asset value should be more to the figure of close to 10 billion rand. Now, from a national or Namibian perspective, transport and logistics is one of the key pillars of our national development plan. And over the years, and of course within my previous role, we have focused a lot on transport corridors into Africa. Of course, the linkage from Walvis Bay into Zambia and DRC, the Trans-Kalahari corridor that links Walvis Bay or Namibia to Botswana and Zimbabwe and South Africa. And then the third corridor, which is the Trans-Kunene corridor, linking Namibia into Angola. But then there's also a fourth corridor, which is the linkage to South Africa, and I'll speak about it a little bit later. Over the last few years, we are now about 30 years independent as a country. Government has spent a lot of funds in terms of port investment, expansion, and also to develop a fuel storage facility, which will come online hopefully before the end of the year. And then there's also dry ports that was set up in Walvis Bay for Botswana, Zimbabwe, Zambia. Now, we are the only railway operator in Namibia, of course, at this stage, having that mandate from the government, but we are also responsible for the maintenance of the railway line. We do require still a lot of railway investment over the next few years, which will allow us to increase the volumes of traffic to justify the perspective in terms of our market share compared to the market share with road in totality. Now, the Namibia railway network is about 2,687 kilometers. And of course, Walvis Bay is a main link, linking the rest of the country, but also the linkage to South Africa is a critical link for our railway infrastructure. Now, if one looks at the perspectives of the railway infrastructure, the condition and so forth, at the moment we using three different conditions, which is poor, average, and good. So you can see 2016, 2025 where we want to be, and 2030 where we also want to be. So at this stage, the majority of our line is at an average condition, while we are trying to find a way in terms of working with government to see how we can develop the railway infrastructure into good condition in totality. Excuse me. So the various rail corridors that we are focusing on now, or the three main ones that we're focusing on at the moment, is between Walvis Bay, then the northern part of Namibia, which is Grootfontein-Tsumeb. Grootfontein, of course, is the linkage into Zambia. So that is currently up to Tsumeb is our biggest rail corridor. Then the other corridor.
Apologies, it seems that Johny is having some connection issues. We'll just wait for him to reconnect.
In the meanwhile that we wait for the connection of Johny, we saw that we start to see some data about the company. We saw, and later we will see better also the business plan for the next year. As we know, the problems of COVID-19 was impacting all the sector. Of course, the sector of rail freight have a different impact, but of course, right now, Johny can continue to introduce what will happen to the Transnamib for the next year, for the next 3 years business plan. So Johny, thank you to be again with us.
Yeah, sorry for that.
Don't worry.
So you still have my presentation online? You can still see it?
No, I can see right now the presentation.
Hi, Johny. You will need to reshare your presentation.
Okay, I'll do so. Okay, my apologies. My apologies for that. Andrea, is everything fine?
Yeah,
Just
right
want
now we can see where you stop when the stop was blocked. So we can continue from here that you discussing about the main routes for
Yes.
Transnamib.
Yes.
Thank you.
So the third route, which is the connection to South Africa, this line was closed between Keetmanshoop and Lourdes, was closed for about 18 years, and government has rehabilitated the line, and now we have moved about 15,000 tons per month for this manganese line, and there's quite a lot of opportunities that we're looking at to increase the tonnage on this line. Within the next year, we want to increase it up to 90,000 tons on a monthly basis. So we're currently working with some of the customers, and we're also looking at some opportunities in expanding our capacity on this line, which is, of course, the manganese that's originating from the Northern Cape to the international markets. Now, in terms of our locomotives at this stage, we are looking at, currently we're busy with a tender to, this tender will most probably be put into public within the next month or so, where we want to remanufacture about 33 locomotives. So basically take 33 of our old locomotives and make it a new. And this will enable us to have then a locomotive capacity of about 86 by 2023. And it will then also allow us to double our volumes during this period. In terms of ourselves, we have a 5-year business plan. Of course, the 5-year business plan has been severely impacted by COVID-19, but fortunately we do have a plan, and we are currently working on sort of rearranging the volumes for this financial year and next financial year to still make sure that we achieve the target as per the original on year 5. We have a strategic focus on rail, and our business plan has got about 4 objectives, and we have also started to implement a performance management system in the company to change the culture. Now, our business plan, in terms of the 4 strategic objectives, is the first one is to break even by 2023, and then to move about 3 million tons by 2023, and then, of course, focusing on improving the organizational excellence, and then to ensure that we have inspiring and accountable leadership at the top level. Our next 5-year goals are really to upgrade the rail infrastructure to SADC standard, which is about 770 kilometers that we want to do within the next 5 years. 1/3 of that was already done within the previous 5 years. We are also looking at 4 potential commuter train services from Windhoek, the capital city, to short distances, which I have indicated as such. And then in the northern part to add 30 kilometers of railway line. And then, of course, the linkages to Zambia as well as to Botswana. Those are the railway projects that we're looking at in terms of starting up within the next 5 years. In terms of our intermodal connections, you will see here Grootfontein is a very important linkage for us, because that's where the railway lines stop at the moment, and we really see an intermodal connection between rail and road from there going forward to serve the Zambian market, while that railway line is then built, which will also take some time. Now, in terms of our volumes, you will see the blue bars is really our original plan, and the red one is now the real situation on the ground. So you will see last year we achieved our target. This financial year we will be a little bit under, and the next financial year still a little bit under, and then eventually we will still achieve the same target of 3 million tons in year 5. The 44% refers to the market share. Currently, the market share of rail is about 12%, and we hope to have about 44% in year 5. In terms of our financial performance, 2020, that was last year, at the end of March this year, we had a loss of 110 million, and hopefully this year the loss will be a little bit less than that, as you can see with the dotted line. And then next year we hope to go into a profit scenario in terms of the company. Short-term needs that we have a cash needs in terms of working capital of around about 200 million at the moment. We are busy rehabilitating 10 locos as part of the short-term plans, and also wagons to also boost our revenues in the short term. So the medium and long-term strategy is really to build a sustainable rail operator, to focus on our road to rail strategy, and also work on some potential for PPPs, while the other rail network linkages are being developed. And for the 5-year plan, in terms of the rail network, it's about 2.6 billion that we are looking at. In terms of the NAMIBIA network, and then of course upgrades of 15 billion. Our 10-point action plan as a company is really in this sort of order, where our business plan was approved in December 2018 by Cabinet. We're busy sourcing funding. We're looking at rolling stock capacity, our road to rail strategy that we have. We're focusing a lot on block trains with specific commodities at the moment. We also looking at strategic partnerships with companies as to how we can work together to build our profile and our volumes, and we also want to leverage the property portfolio going forward to eventually become profitable. So that is my presentation in the 15 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Johny. Really, really interesting. Now there will be for sure many time for discussion. I start to see already some Q&A. I want just to repeat you that there's a Q&A box where you can put some of the question. I will read to Johny later. Right now, just a short introduction, what is happening all around the world, because we saw here the impact of COVID-19 from Transnamib. That is quite, it's normal to have this kind of impact in terms of financial, in terms of volume, and so on, or in terms of growth of the volume. But all around the world, we start to see that also the rail freight has an impact, especially in Europe, for example. We have during the lockdown like -30%, -40%. Right now, probably we are around -10%, so it's much better. And there's a study, I want just to introduce you the fact that there's a UIC study, the Union Internationale Chemin de Fer, that is the international organization of the rail companies, that have an economic, that underline that the economic impact for the rail in general will be higher than $100 million in terms of missed revenue all around the world. Is a very big numbers. Of course, for rail freight is a part of that. There's two scenarios: the slow recovery and the quick recovery. So, of course, in the slow recovery, there's an impact on the rail freight that is stronger for the second half of 2020 than the first half of 2020. And in the slow recovery, also 2021 is not easy year. So, starting from this kind of element, and then maybe I will share this study that is for free. I will give to Kelly, and then we can share to the audience. It's very. I have a first question for Johny about what you expect or what you see about the market in Namibia, but in general in the Southern Africa. How you see the recovery? Because in the first analysis of UIC is not still clear, depending of the area. For example, in China, you don't have this kind of impact, but in Europe is very strong. In America is quite strong. What is your perception as an operator, as CEO of one important operator in the Southern Africa about this recovery of the sector? What is your perception?
Yeah. So what we have observed during this period of COVID-19 is that for especially the mining commodities, during the first month of our lockdown, which was about April in the first month of our financial year, the volumes went down a little bit, but after that it went back to normal, or almost normal. What we have experienced as a reduction mainly was also the containers, and then of course the fuel. Now, what we are seeing from a railway perspective is that with the fuel, it's been very difficult for us to bounce back, because when the country started to open up, the fuel companies started to order. The ordering system was a little bit different. So we've been struggling to adjust and align ourselves, because as a company, we are also still in the process of transforming and implementing new ways of doing things. But in totality, it's been more the sort of international freight in the mode of containers that has been, which has impacted our business. Our container business went down with almost about 50%, while the previous year it grew with about 50%. So this is what has happened. But we are looking at quite a few opportunities to see as to how we can grow our business. At this stage, COVID-19 is not necessarily the biggest challenge for us as a railway company. The biggest challenge for us is really the number of locomotives that we do have available in terms of providing reliable service. So we have focused a lot on that perspective to see how we can improve our business over the last few months, and this has allowed us to say, okay, it's been a bad 6 months, first 6 months of the financial year, but this is how we can bounce back, and this is what we are focusing on now. So at least for the last 2 weeks, we have achieved new targets in terms of moving forward, where we said, okay, maybe these new systems that we have put in place is really the way to go.
Yeah, what you are telling about the differences about this between different sectors is really clear. Also, for example, here in Europe or in other countries, when I discuss with other CEO in other countries, we really seeing exactly the same. The container, many times we have a problem, also because the container traffic on the maritime sector is really affected, many traffic. What is happening is other traffic, for example, for fuel, we have the same. Here in Europe, also automotive was really affected at the beginning because no one was buying cars, so there was no traffic of cars, for example. So it's really depending about the traffic and about the specificity. the traffic. What we understand that for you, the main topic is to focus on the operational in terms of find the loco, to finance the loco, to develop the traffic with the new loco, as we saw from the plan to double the loco in the next years. It will be not so easy, but it's very, very important to find this kind of a new rolling stock to improve the quality of the service and to catch part of the market to the road, because this is a modal shift, is a typical element that we saw in many countries, and also we saw from your presentation, that I think is very, very important. We have here a lot of questions, so we can start. I go to the wow. We go here. Yeah, I start from the first that I see, that is from Richard Malinga, because due to the fact that we have already 14 questions, I think is very is very important. Oh, I missed that, but
I've
okay.
already answered those 2 questions, so we can go to the next one.
Yeah, what signaling system are you planning to implement of ETCS, okay, or any other legacy system? Any plan to implement any critical communication? What is in terms of developing of the system to improve also, the possibility to have more traffic on the same line?
Yeah, so we don't have a specific preference in terms of a communication system, a signaling system to be implemented. We will go out on tender within the next year or so. We still sort of putting the technical terms of reference together, and then of course we will focus on what we will come back, what we will get back from the market in terms of the options. So we don't have a specific preference.
Yeah, it's to make an analysis of cost benefits in function of the traffic and to find the better solution. What I saw in many countries, depending also the solution, you have many different good solutions, but you have to find the best solution for you in terms of the traffic, what kind of traffic, and so on. So it's very important, as you told. So watching the different possibility to find in the market is quite normal, and then there will be a solution that will be better for the company. There's a second question that are you engaging students in your company that are studying transport management for them to have experience on railway sector? So in terms is, how are you thinking to develop also your company thanks to the newcomers in terms of students? I'm also professor, so I'm very happy when new people enter in the companies. That is very important. So this is an interesting question.
Yeah, no, that one I did answer. So what we do have a partnership with some of the universities in Namibia in terms of taking on interns. So we take a certain number of students in on an annual basis.
Yeah, Johnny, coming back to a little bit of my question. What is a very then we go back to the Q&A because we have 1 hour more. So what is very interesting is that you show that in the next 3 years, even if there's a COVID impact, as we discussed, you plan to arrive probably to 3 million tons. That is a very good number in terms to doubling the number in just 3-4 years, or in 4 or 5 years. This is very interesting. And this is very important, the investment in the of course in the local, but also, as we saw, the investment in infrastructure. So how to be able to attract also more private investment, because we heard about in your presentation about PPP. So how you think is a good strategy to go in this direction together, of course, with the government? That has to be a strategy together.
Yeah, so as I said, the rail infrastructure belongs to government, so we work together with government. And Namibia has approved the year before last year a PPP framework. So it's based on that PPP framework that we will then put out potential projects in terms of, especially on the passenger side, because the passenger side is a bit more complicated since the population of Namibia is not that big. The size is not that big, so it really requires proper expertise to make sure that a proper project is put on the table. Although for the commuter services, there has been feasibility studies done already.
Yeah.
But in terms of other projects to build capacity, yes, we open to look at that and engage and see where we can work together to eventually create more opportunities and more freight movement between or within Namibia.
Of course, about the passenger, you know that my experience is coming from high speed and then with the rail. So
Yeah.
it's very interesting how you can increase the use of the infrastructure from a government perspective, how you can increase the use of infrastructure, just not with the rail freight, that is very important, but also going for commuter, long distance train, touristic train, and so on. So it's very, very important to go in this direction. I remember that in your presentation last year, there was a project to develop also touristic train. Of course, right now, with COVID-19, this kind of tourism and this kind of a touristic train is not easy, or we have to wait for development. But I think these new ideas is very important also to improve the company, to improve the country.
Yeah, in fact, we do have a tourist train, which we call the Desert Express. So we are actually starting with the first service now between Windhoek and the coast within the next month. So it's for the internal market to some extent, but also mostly the external market. But because tourists are coming in slowly now, we are also marketing it to the Namibians now.
Yeah, of course. Of course, is this kind of also high yield, but because also this kind of traffic, we have several examples in other parts of the world, and it's very interesting that this is a high yield, that is a sort of touristic train. Is very very interesting. Also because Namibia is a wonderful country, so for many tourists also coming from outside of the country, could be very interesting to have this kind of services. But coming back to the commuter. The commuter, of course, here also you need investment and help from the government, because to have it's not just to have some local, but also to organize the system to increase, for example, the capacity of the line. Many times this is not easy. And do you think that the commuter could be developed in the next 5 years? Do you think it is possible? Even if there's this COVID-19 impact that have a strong impact, especially on the passenger transportation?
No, it's definitely possible. As I said, there were already feasibility studies done for those commuter services. So it can be done because there's about 4 different lines as an option. So we can look at maybe 1 or 2 where through the feasibility studies, it indicated that some are more feasible than others. So for sure, that's what we're looking at the next 5 years.
Great. Yeah. Of course, reconnecting to a question that we have before. Also on this side is very important. I think the possibility to be able to attract young students that are studying transport management and so on, because to develop a new business as the passenger business, of course, is not easy also for a company. I saw creating a company like High Speed Rail, a private one, from zero. It was very, very complex. It was very long time, long investment, but also long investment to the people, because you need people that are able also to help you to develop this kind of business. So I think what you tell that you start cooperation with different universities is very, very important about that. And I think really that there's opportunity on that. So at the same time is a good challenge, but at the same time is a good opportunity, as we saw many times. So great about that. And we have to start to see, just to mix a little bit, we have other question. I go on the open question. For example, which technology do you foresee to improve the visibility of freight in order to provide customer with estimate delivery times, okay, and other information regarding their freight? So how to go closer to the customer, giving real-time information?
Yeah, so what we do have is that we currently have a 20+ year software system that is providing information on our freight, and we are implementing a new system. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, we had to delay it. So we are going live within the next week or two on the new system, which will provide more visibility to us in terms of our freight movement. So that is what we are focusing on. But of course, we want to eventually have a much more clear view of our freight movement. We do already have a tracking system, which we want to couple with that, so that there is better visibility. And this will then, at the end of the day, the new system that we implement will then also help us in terms of our planning. Although from a planning perspective, a clear planning perspective, we will be looking at a cloud-based system to support the freight movement or the freight operation system in order for us to have better visibility, but also to have better train planning in totality. So that tender for the train planning system will most probably also go out early next year or so.
Right, great, because the technology, the possibility of the technology as a cloud-based, as you also told, is very, very important, because the fact that you can have, with the same number of assets, you can improve your productivity in terms of train kilometers, in terms also about the train loco driver. Also is all mixing all this information all together help the company to have more and more better result. I think is a key element, as you underline. So not only to know where the train is, but also how to manage all the assets of the company to go in the same direction, to have a better productivity, so to use the same asset in a better way. So I think it's very, very important that is a very, very interesting to the fact that you are going this direction with the investment, because you need investment in, of course, in terms of technology, but also in people that are able to use this kind of technology. That is not easy many times to change the mentality inside the company. Is it?
Yes, yes. And what we are also looking at is we're looking at the synchronization between us and the port and us and the other railway companies. In this case, we do have a railway line between us and Transnet. So those are the options that we are looking at in terms of moving forward, so that it can improve our planning going forward, and to make sure that we optimize our business in totality. Because in terms of our routing, is in some cases quite long distances. One way, in terms of our busiest route at the moment, is about 750 kilometers one way. So we have basically three different routes at the moment, each of them round about that distance. So it makes it very difficult in terms of the planning, because it's not just one line that you are planning on.
Yeah. As you probably remember, I'm working also in other countries, for example, in Tanzania with the World Bank, about the interconnection between the line and the port. And this is very, very important for the port, for the railway system, for the rail operator in general. It's not easy to coordinate, but it's very important because technology is there, and it's very important also the driving of the government on this side, because of course you need, that an authority, that could be the port authority, speak with the rail operator, that speak with the infrastructure manager, and so on. So it's very, very important, the coordination. And you are a part of the system, but it's very interesting that you are trying to go in the same direction. I think that this kind of cooperation is very, very important for the country, finally.
Yes. No, it's very important. I think I can start answering some of these questions.
Yeah.
There's a question from Yuan about the remanufacturing of the 33 locos. Okay, so as I said, the tender will be out hopefully within the next month. And then the funding is not from government. We are actually working with a potential funder in terms of funding our complete business plan.
Yeah, it's that's very, very important about you explained very well why it's so important to increase the number of loco, also to increase the market share of the rail from 12 to 44% for the next year, as it was very clear in your presentation. Of course, to go in this direction is important, the funding, but also is important coordination between the government and the company and so on. So it's I think it's very, very important. There's another question, Johny, I start to read to you. Can you perhaps tell how long the existing contract with Trayport Manganese will last, if you want to answer, because could be also, you know, this kind of question could be confidential information.
Yeah. So that one specifically is confidential. So I would not discuss the time period.
No, of course.
But it's fine. I mean, it depends always on the commodity. It depends on the route, etc. And those are discussions that we have with our clients.
Yeah, of course, is an internal discussion within the operator and the customer. Of course, as we heard from Johny, all the commodities apart April is going quite well. So I imagine that also, if the market is going well, if the traffic is growing for the next 5 years or next 3 years, it means that also there's a good opportunity to develop more and more this kind of traffic on terms of commodities. Also, the container we saw that was going well, so we can expect maybe after the end of this crisis that also the container traffic could continue to increase. Is it?
Yeah, so we are working on that at the moment in terms of the options for containers. As I said, the previous year, the increase was 50% from the year before. So now we have a complete opposite scenario, but we are engaging our customers. We are also, we've already started engagements with the shipping lines, so that we can see how we can work directly with them to increase the container movements in the country, and to optimize our railheads, which is where the railway lines stop, to see how we can optimize our capacity, because we have a lot of capacity in terms of storage at our stations. So we are looking at those options and specific commodities that we can move going forward. So it is just at the moment we have been focusing a lot more rather on the mining commodities and our core clients to make sure that at least we're trying to move more of those volumes.
Yeah. And the fact that you go directly to the customer, to the shipping line, is I think is very important, because finally you also know not only the needs but also in terms of coordination, because of course this kind of traffic, you need a lot of coordination with for example with the ports, with the shipping company and so on. So also help a lot in terms to develop better or to know better the needs of this customer that is a shipping lines.
Okay, so can I just answer some of the?
Yeah.
So the question from Mr. Telia
Mhm.
on the rehabilitation of the 10 Chinese locals, it's actually less than 10 at the moment, but we are working on maybe trying to rehabilitate some of it, and then those ones that's left is actually part of the tender that we will put out within the next month or so. The question on from Jabulani on the new system, whether it will provide tracking information on international or cross-border. At this stage, only within Namibia. If it is cross-border, of course, if it's cross-border, of course, it is going to travel by road, because we only have the one connection into South Africa with TFR. So that one, for now, will be limited to Namibia, unless we put that in our terms of reference going forward.
Yeah, there's maybe another question from Marco Bussi, and then there's also a question for me. So,
Yes.
is infrastructure within the perimeter of your business? If yes, how are you performing diagnostic of your reef? What plans do you have, if you can share them?
Yeah, so the infrastructure, as I said, belongs to government, the railway infrastructure, but we are responsible for the maintenance. So there's a continuous discussion between government and Transnamib. Of course, we do our trolley inspections on a regular basis. So we do know what is the condition of the railway network at specific points. So we are busy putting a plan together for government to see how we can then convince them to start funding specific sections according to the priority in terms of moving the freight along the railway line. Whether we can share them, I would not say so, but we can always discuss and see what are the specific needs and so forth, and then we can see what we can share in terms of some of the detail.
Yeah, I think when in many countries you have a different operator that are, one is a rail operator and the other is a infrastructure management. Could be two different companies. You can have in many countries happen that, and it's very, very interesting how also who made the maintenance also could to work better with the government or with the infrastructure manager to have a better maintenance, because finally the maintenance of the infrastructure is very, very important also for the rail operation in terms of quality of the service. So it's very important to be able to continue to speak, to find the best way to increase finally the productivity of the line, because without funding, without resources for the infrastructure, finally also the rail operators start to suffer a lot the fact that you can have some problem. This is typical in many, many countries where there's not one single operator that manages the infrastructure and the rail operator. So I think it's very important what you tell.
So the question from Andre, just to answer that, yes, currently the competitiveness with road is quite interesting, and we're trying to find a way by focusing on bulk commodities. So with the plan that we have in place, we want to improve reliability with our new locomotives over a period of time, and through that, of course, we will increase our freight volumes, and then eventually we should then be able to reduce the cost of transportation in Namibia in totality through the bulk movement of commodities. The question from Moritz, yes, we do have a future for GAMAMS. We actually looking for a partner or a company that wants to rent out GAMAMS or part of GAMAMS to help us to develop this training school, since we do not have cash available now. So we are looking for potential partners in terms of GAMAMs at the moment going forward, so that we can also improve and build the capacity internally with Transnamib.
Yeah, there's Johnny, about what you told about infrastructure and what you told about the station, the space for container and something like that. During your presentation, you told very clearly that it's very important also the intermodality with the roads. So the intermodality within rail and road is a very, very key element. And do you think that you can also develop the business together with directly together in the road system? You think you will find a good partnership with the railroad for the intermodality and so on?
Yeah, no, on that one, we're very confident. We've already spoken to quite a lot of road transporters. I think due to my previous role that I had in terms of the corridors, the road transporters will always remain my friends. But nevertheless, we will complement each other in terms of going forward to eventually move more traffic in totality. So that's really the objective. So we had already quite a few positive engagements on that one.
Yeah, great, because this is a little bit the key elements that every kind of traffic, of course, has a possibility to be developed not just in one way. Of course, some particular traffic as commodities many times is very linked to the rail. But for example, when we think about container, it's typical to have dry ports and to have intermodality between the rail and roads, because the rail can't arrive wherever you want. It's not for the last mile. So the rail, what we call backbone, is a real backbone, maybe from the ports to the dry ports. And then you can also develop, not you, but with the transport sector, road transport sector, it's possible to develop together this kind of traffic to have a better logistics system, because finally what is important is to reduce the cost for the consumer and is to give the quicker or the best service in terms of quality for the consumer. So it's not going one against the other, but many times it's able to develop together the system.
Yeah, so what we have done is that we have, from a railway operations perspective, we only want to, we've taken out the handling, the loading and the loading of cargo out of the business. So that is either done by the customer or is done by a third party. So we would rather lease a specific area at the station and say, do what you have to do there. All that we want to do is we just want to drive the trains from one station to another station, and you do the loading and offloading, packing and unpacking. The storage area at the station you can lease from us, etc. To have a clean business, and this is really our business model going forward, to ensure that we remain focused in terms of moving bulk commodities from station to station or station to port.
So you will give the possibility to third parties to help you in the managing of dry ports or to managing the station in the future. You see this kind of possibility for also for private to try to work together with you, or you think is
yeah, I wouldn't say the station, but the space at the station.
Yeah, the space. The logistic space close to the station.
Yeah, no, we already have companies that's doing that. So as I said, 95% of our customers are already, they are doing the loading and offloading themselves in terms of the cargo. So they either sometimes lease a property from us at the station, which they use as a storage facility, etc. So we are already doing that. It's not new for us. It's just we want to focus on driving the train from station to station.
The train operation, the traction of the train, and the of course, yeah, it's typical in this business to find this kind of attention to the operation in terms of driving the train or the traction of the train. There's before that I answer, because there's a more generic question on the USC study and the economic impact of COVID-19 in general for the rail sector. That is for me. There's another question from Marco Bussi. Do you think you might share a critical communication network with other government agencies or infrastructure in terms? Is possible in the southern Africa or in Africa in general to go for a better integration of the system, also in terms of critical communication network and so on? Do you see these possibilities?
Yes, I would say from our side, but of course there's protocols on the other side of government. At the end of the day, we would be looking at optimizing our network and also creating more visibility. So definitely we would be looking at it from a positive perspective.
Yeah, of course. I can answer a little bit, because working with some agency in another country in the southern in Africa in general, it's very, very important that we in terms of in the African continent, we will are able to coordinate and in terms of to have integration more and more the network, not just about the rail, but also in terms of communication system and so on. In terms, not that you have to choose just one single system, but that there's better coordination between the different governments. I think this is my idea, that it's very important to have more and more international traffic, because international traffic could be very, very important also in Africa, as for example is in Europe or could be in other parts. Because Marco is underlined that some Australian states are implementing LTE networks that support other utilities in the near future. Of course, LTE network is a big investment. It's a decision many times from the government too. So I think it's not only the rail operator, but also the different governments that have to go in the same direction. It's possible, I think, to discuss all together. I don't know, Johny, if you have the different idea from me.
No, it's fine.
So I start to answer a little bit about the economic impact of COVID-19. Can we expect anything positive for the rail sector? Yes, if we are able, as a rail sector, if we are able to catch opportunities. As Johny underlined very well in the presentation, of course there was an impact also, for example, in Namibia about the COVID-19. But for some kind of traffic, there will be possibility to recover very quick. We saw also in other countries, for example, just an example, China, that is the first country to have the COVID-19, was able also in the first semester of 2020, so during the COVID-19 impact, they grew the number of trains and of the rail freight. So they were able to continue to grow. Of course, there's opportunities in some particular markets. So I'm not so negative about the rail sector for the future. The COVID-19 has a strong impact on the finance of the rail operator and the rail infrastructure. If the government understood that, they help the companies many times, this kind of traffic for the time being of right now, we can expect that the rail in the future could continue to develop, as was done in many, many countries. Of course, depending also about the investment of the government and depending how the government is putting the attention on that. Of course, we have to pay attention on that, because we have to pay attention not to unbalance too much the market. And we have to remember that the possibility of development coming many times from the rail company that could continue the growth as we expect, for example, in Namibia, just as example. So I'm not so negative. I'm quite positive, apart the financial problems right now for many rail undertaking. We saw many governments to intervene to help that. For example, the access charge, so the cost for using the infrastructure that could be quite high in many countries was cancelled, was reduced or something like that, to try to help the rail operator to give the opportunity to develop better the traffic. This is happening in many countries, for example, here in Europe, here in Italy, for example. So what we saw that the access charge for using infrastructure was for free for some months. So this kind of measure could help in terms of financial also the company. And this is important for the rail operator. If there's no demand, try to support also the rail operator. I don't know, Johny. I think that could be also from your part to be sustained just temporarily is could be important. Is we saw in many countries.
Yeah, no, the business case for rail at the moment in Namibia is very, very positive. There's a big opportunity because you sit with the situation that clients actually want to use your service, but you are not necessarily reliable enough. So what we are doing now is we're working with one customer and one route, and then we fix it. Then we go to the next one. Slowly but surely we will get there. But in terms of, there's definitely no shortage of business opportunities in terms of freight movement for Transnamib as a railway company, despite COVID-19. So we are continuously focusing on implementing our business plan by becoming more efficient and, of course, at the same time, build up additional rolling stock capacity.
Yeah, the two things is going a lot together. New rolling stock help also to give many times higher quality to the service, because if is a new rolling stock, try to help to give a better quality to the service. Also to find new rolling stock is very important to develop these opportunities. So to go together, but at the same time, as we underlined before, we need also coordination with the infrastructure manager. That could be different, because even if it's not easy to develop, if there's no totally coordination between infrastructure manager and rail operator, if they are different. What we saw, for example, in many countries, for example, where I'm working in Tanzania, there's the idea also to give possibility to new operator to enter in the market, to give competition. Of course, it's decision of every single government. From my point of view, it's important to give a higher and higher quality to the customer, as Johny told very well. In terms the customer, there's opportunity for the customer. We have to be able to catch this opportunity thanks to the rolling stock, thanks to the quality, thanks to know what the consumer wants. I think is a key element on this point. Johny, there's another question. Yeah, I heard that there's still more room for improvement in the rail. I saw this comment. I totally agree. I'm totally agree about that. Johny.
Yes. No, of course. And what one has to do is one has to identify exactly what are the issues, and then focus on those issues going forward. To change a railway company, it is very difficult because you have to change the culture and the way things has to be done. And this is what we find. I've got a complete new executive team together with myself, where we are looking at the way that the business has been operating and how should we improve the business going forward. And that is one of the biggest elements that we have to change, because now we are starting to ask the questions as to why are we doing something this way? Should we not do it a different way? And sometimes you get the answer that, no, we've been doing this the last 20 years like this. Why should it be changed? So those are the interventions that we are busy with, and also looking for some quick wins. On one of the lines where we have made a change to introduce a 24-hour service, we've actually now doubled the freight volumes on that line as one of the new ways of doing it. So those are the options and quick wins that we look at in terms of gaining momentum and transforming the company going forward.
Yeah, and personally, my direct experience, I work for as consultant, many companies or many government. It was quite easier when a new company was created from zero to create this new culture, or to create a culture for But in the rail sector, where the history is really there, because we are speaking about a company that many times have 100, in many cases, 100 of years of history, is not easy at all to change the mentality, to change also the procedure inside the company, and could be very, very important to be able to explain to the people working there, working the company, to be able to explain that there could be new possibility to develop, of course, to develop better the rail system. So I think it's very, very important. There's a question from Antea that is for me and for you. Can the region expect foreign investment in the coming year to assist with any 2020 financial setbacks? We think that there's possibility for foreign investment in the rail sector, in the logistics sector.
Yes, so I believe there are foreign investment options for rail. It just depends on the regulation. Now, I'm not sure the question whether the way that it's structured, it states the 2020 financial setbacks. Now, is it free money, or is it in the format of a PPP, or is it in the format of technology, etc.? But in terms of free money, I can't answer that question. But I have experienced that there is definitely a lot of interest from Europe and other countries, other regions in the world to invest in the railway in Africa. There's definitely an appetite for that.
Yeah, totally. We saw in other areas that there was a strong interest in developing and in developing the rail, and to have new money coming in the sector. I think regulation is, as Johny told, is a key element because, of course, it's very important for an investor. When I spoke with a big investment company, they have to be sure what will be the investment for the next 5-10 years. Rail, in theory, is very, very good, because in theory, rail have a very long term, is a very long term investment that is a typical good for investment. The problem is many times is to be able to give a good regulation, and this regulation is stable from here for the next 10 years. If I have this kind of clear and stable regulation, I will be able to invest in also in the southern part of Africa, whatever you want in all around the world, also in Italy. If you don't have stable regulation and clear regulation, is not easy to attract, even if there's opportunity. So what we have to ask to the government, from my point of view, is please be able to give a stable regulation. Could be in a direction or in another direction. Is a political decision. Is not my decision. It's a political decision. But then try to maintain quite stable regulation to help the sector to develop and to attract investment. Because even if it could be very difficult to continue to attract investment, but opportunities are really clear. Africa is really a key part of the world for next opportunities in the world. I'm totally sure about that.
Yeah.
There's another question. Okay, there's another question for me, but if you want to make more question, we have time about that. I prefer to start with the question to discuss with Johny about that, because I think it's more, it is more with the audience. It's better to discuss directly with them and to continue to read and the question and so on. There's a question that could be for me, but I think that we can give also an answer. That is, what can we in Africa learn from rail project in Europe? First of all, I think working in Europe, in Asia, in US, or working in Africa too, I think that is not possible. First of all, it's not possible to copy and paste a model. It's totally not possible. The conditions are completely different. The condition from regulation, the condition of politicians, of the political side, and so on. So what we can learn, from my point of view, is to try to not make mistake that we have in some country of Europe. First of all, the fact that even if we have Europe, that is a continent, we are completely divided in the rail freight. So in the rail freight, we are not able to have a single area. If we are able to create a single area in Europe, we can have a longer routes with a bigger train, with more freight. So first of all, the first is try to go together in terms of to try to have a similar regulation, to try to speak within the different governments. So what also Johny told, that is important, that the new line going to South Africa, for example, and so on, is a key element. So it's not learning from Europe. It's just not to make the mistakes that we made in the past in Europe. So I think Johny answered also a little bit to that, because the fact that the interconnection between the different lines is a key element to try to find new business and new possibility for the rail sector. So,
yeah.
Johny, about the international segment that you told,
Yeah.
of course, there's an investment to do, as you underline. Do you think that for your company could be a big or important part if you, in the next 10 years, not in the 5 years, but in the next 10 years, do you think that could be a good part of the business or an important part of the business, is international traffic for you? If you imagine, of course, it's depending not only from your company.
Yeah. So at this stage, in terms of the main link that we have with the port already do a significant percentage of its volumes is already regional cargo, meaning it's international traffic to the neighboring countries. So at this stage, we don't do much of that. So that's an opportunity for us. We have also in the domestic market, there's a lot of opportunity for us in terms of moving the freight volumes from road to rail. And then, of course, we've already started with the linkage in terms of the manganese exports from South Africa through Namibia to the international market. So we are looking within the next 3 to 5 years, we're looking at least at a figure of 1 million tons per annum, just for the international traffic by rail to the neighboring countries as a minimum.
Yeah, so you see as clear opportunities for your company and for not only for the company but also for the country, because then it means that you have international traffic that go to your port and something like that. That could be very, very interesting about that. I don't know if you want to answer. Is open new business? I don't know what could means open Transnamib open to new business in terms new business, in terms of a new line, in terms of totally different business. Because of course, for a company, is, as we saw from Transnamib, it's very, very important to develop the different stage, to try, as Johny told very well, to fix every single line, to fix every single service, to have a very good service, to increase the service. So to open new business also many times is, of course, is an opportunity. It means a new customer, but at the same time, totally new business, apart what we told about the commuter or touristic train and something like that, is not maybe the focus of the company. I don't know, Johny, if I understood well.
Yeah, the question is not very clear. I mean, new business can mean anything, but it's new business in terms of freight movement or any other applicable business. We can look at it, and we, of course, handle it through our commercial and marketing department.
Yeah, of course. I think the new business also is a commuter rail in terms this is different. Of course, as I told, I have a long experience in the passenger rail. Is not easy also because this kind of business, especially the commuter, and we saw not only in Europe but quite every part of the world, means that the government have to subsidize also this kind of services. The commuter service, many times, as we know, also in South Africa, many times the commuter service is subsidized, and you need more financial money from the government to make this kind of business. So also is a decision of the government, because if you don't help to develop this kind of business, probably you can develop this business. And this is could be is not easy for a company to think if there's no clear financial flow from the government. So also this element of also this point is very important when we spoke about to be clear in the regulation, to be clear in terms of services and so on, because to develop a commuter rail, many times you need the subsidies or contribution from the state, from the government. I think that I don't know exactly the business plan in Namibia, but I can imagine that it could be quite similar also in Namibia, because in all the countries that I travel and I know, normally the business model is something like that.
Yeah. So as I've indicated earlier, there's a distinct difference between the movement of passengers and freight movement. So we do focus a lot on the freight movement at the moment. In terms of passenger movement, we also do combine currently passenger service with the freight trains to make it more feasible. And we also do have our touristic train, which is called the Desert Express. But going forward, in terms of the long-term planning for Namibia, and especially our capital city, Windhoek, commuter trains would become more important, and that planning and implementation of such projects must happen now within the next 5 years, so that we, as the city grow, that we then also ease up the sort of congestion that we may experience in the medium to long term.
Yeah, I think this is a very, very important element, the congestion in the big cities. You have in Dar es Salaam, you have wherever, Lagos or whatever, in Africa, but also in Asia or in Europe. So this is an opportunity, it's really an opportunity to increase or to better move the people inside the city or close to the city. This has to be, as you told, it's a long term, but of course means that the government, this is my idea, government has to start to think right now, because to make this kind of investment, you need time to be concluded, and you need time to put the service that could work for the customer. So it's very important, because of course it's not easy at all to develop from zero this kind of services, and especially for the cities that are growing so fast as you can find in Africa. Especially in Africa, the cities are really growing extremely fast. So yeah. I don't know, Johny, if there's no, I don't see any other questions. So I don't know if there's no other question. I think that we can finish our coffee here. I finished my coffee. It's already cold.
My coffee is already.
Mine is Italian coffee. It's very short. So
water.
Yeah, you know, it's not like an American coffee. Italian coffee is like that. So finish very quick. But really, thank you so much for your time to answer so many questions. And really, thank you for the discussion. I learned a lot. That is the best also for me. And thank you very much for your time. And I give the floor to Kelly that finished this coffee with the SIA.
My pleasure.
Thank you to Transnamib for partnering with us for this session, and of course Professor Anjaya for moderating it for us. We had attendees from around 25 different countries this afternoon, so a very warm welcome to all of you. And we look forward to welcoming Mr. Smith and Professor Anjaya to Maputo, Mozambique in April 2021 for our Transport Evolution Mozambique Forum. And then of course,
I hope so.
Later.
I want also to try, I told to my wife that I want to try the desert service in Namibia. I already spoke about last year to my wife. The problem is to know when we can travel again.
Yes, we're looking forward to it, and we're hoping to travel all around the SADC region and then back, of course, to South Africa for our overall African show in 2021. So we hope that you'll both be there with your wives.
Thank you.
Of course, DMG events are continuously monitoring the COVID-19 situation, and we will adhere to all health and safety measures. Just a quick note, our next coffee with the CEO will be next week on the 6th of October. Please ensure you register as we continue to discuss the rail objectives, this time with Zambia Railways Limited, excuse me. Today's session again is recorded, and Mr. Smith's presentation will be made available in the coming week. So I'd like to thank you all again, especially our participants, Anjaya and Johny, and I look forward to welcoming you back next week. Stay safe and look after yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you.